welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. I'm really excited to talk with our guest today. Welcome, Sarah Quillen, Executive Director of ILADS. Wow, we have a lot to talk about because already in the green room, we were freaking out our producer because we were talking.
I tend to do that because your show is just so great and there's so many practical things from it. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be a part of this this endeavor.
Thank you. That's very nice. Well, I thought of you for two reasons. Your name came across my desk and I can't even remember how, but I was thinking about Lyme's disease and this like mysterious illness that swirls around. I know in my family, I live in the West, so we don't really deal with this as much, but I have family in the East and they had like chronic health problems, and it took well over a decade to figure out that they had Lyme's disease. And this family member was an accountant. And so he wasn't like the typical, they were like, how would you get this type of, thing? And then marry that to the conversation of culture, nonprofit culture. I was like, I got to get this woman on the Nonprofit Show because we have a lot to talk about.
There's a lot going on.
I know there's a lot going on. And I must say, there's always a lot going on the Nonprofit Show. So you're my type of woman because we got to get into it. Another thing that I want to make sure that we do is honor our amazing supporters. And they come to us from Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and 180 Management Group. These are the folks that allow us now for more than 5 years. Well, actually, we're in our 5th year, but more than 1,100 shows to be in business and to bring these episodes to you each and every day. We also have this amazing group of co-hosts. They are fabulous. They join me from all over the country, and I hope you're getting to know them and really love them, I have to say, as much as I do. Okay, Sarah Quillen, Executive Director, International Lyme and Associated Disease Society. And we go with ILADS.
Yep, well done.
So talk about this issue first, and then we'll put it into perspective as from you in terms of being a leader and talking about culture. But I do want to back up and talk about Lyme's disease and also that word associated diseases.
So thank you for backing up and allowing me the time to give a little bit of perspective and background on Lyme disease. I'm sure people have probably heard of it, or they know, like you, they know somebody who's had it to a different degree. So basically, Lyme disease is a bacterial infection caused by a spiral-shaped bacterium, what we call a spirochete. And it's actually, the official Latin term is Borrelia burgdorferi. So in its early stages, Lyme disease can result in a rash or joint pain or headaches, very basic symptoms. And then later stages can run way deeper and way more serious: arthritis, cognitive difficulties, major fatigue, a myriad of other symptoms that really have a debilitating effect on patients' lives. The CDC has estimated over 476,000 new cases of Lyme disease each year in the US. And in general, it comes from the bite of a tick. But we're also finding that it's coming from a number of other passages like fleas and things like that. It's a complex disease. And actually, I'll go back to the associated disease part that you mentioned in a second. It's often difficult to diagnose and treat effectively. For the people who are lucky, and I will say my father has dealt with Lyme disease. He's had 5 different bouts of Lyme disease. And most of the times he now knows exactly how to self-diagnose because he knows his symptoms. He gets the joint pain and he knows, all right, I don't normally have that. This is weird. Let me go get tested. And he knows enough to go to the doctor very quickly. But a lot of people either don't go to the doctor, ignore the symptoms, don't have the normal symptoms, or are misdiagnosed. And the more you get into this community, you will learn some truly horrendous stories of patients who've gone years misdiagnosed, underdiagnosed, treated inappropriately, treated for other things that they didn't end up having, and it didn't end up alleviate their suffering. And so that was really the impetus of where ILADS was born. And we're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. So we have come quite a long way.
I would imagine that you have had to become a PR and communications juggernaut.
Oh, you are not kidding. So my background is actually in fundraising and PR. And so I find myself very fortunate to have that experience and that background, in addition to program implementation in coming into this role.
Mm-hmm. It's such a fascinating thing because I've got to believe you're like on the cutting edge of trying to bring a lot of cultures together from, the PR and the communications culture, which is a whole thing, the medical culture, talking about different aspects of these associated diseases. I can't ever think of a time when I've seen an organization use that word associated diseases. In essence, communicating that there are a lot of things going on. It's not just one thing. So, wow, what a heavy lift.
It's amazing though. I mean, I so enjoy this kind of work because I know that I always need to serve a purpose in my work, and it fulfills me personally. And of course, having the family connection makes it that much more. But ILADS is a fairly small medical society. We're under 600 members. We are global. And you mentioned talking about being coming from the West. It's a little bit of a misconception that that Lyme disease doesn't exist out West. It's only something in the Northeast. It's not. And we have members all across the US. Actually, our largest membership right now is in California, where people have no idea that there's Lyme disease, there's Bartonella, there's babesiosis, there's rickettsia. There's a whole list of complex illnesses that all kind of come in together and really make their way into a patient's life.
Wow. Well, let's talk about culture from the perspective that you've had. You've been fortunate or unfortunate to live through, because I always love when an active professional who's serving in the nonprofit sector can come and share their wisdom with us. I mean, somebody who, dare I say, you're in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
So let's start with how you define nonprofit culture and how do you see it working?
So I actually don't necessarily make the distinction between nonprofit and versus for-profit. And I follow the I think we should be called for impact versus nonprofits, if you're of that genre, because I feel that this is one of the challenges that I think the nonprofit community and associations, especially because we're nonprofit, that gives us a free rein to not necessarily have infrastructure, to not spend money on administrative things, that every penny needs to go directly to programs. And while, yes, we absolutely must maximize those hard-earned donations, there's a responsibility that we have to the donor, to the constituent, to the patients, to all the folks who are part of our organization, that to be run correctly, that requires infrastructure. And it can be something as simple as policies and procedures, and having all the software in place to be able to carry on the day-to-day. So the long answer is I think the definition should all be for impact. You exist to make an impact in not just your specific community, but in all the communities, because all the boats raise with the tide, right? When we all work together and all have one unified purpose, that is how we all succeed.
Yeah. Wow. I love your direction here. And I think that this is such an interesting conversation, because I feel as though when you start out with that parameter and that concept, it really changes how you look at culture, right? I mean, and I think one of the things that I have seen is that when you have something, especially with boards, that you can exercise or you can inculcate a concept with your board that they can go back into their community, whether it be for profit or maybe other board service. To your point, everything is elevated, everything advances forward. And so I love that you can link through this issue or this concept to, the private sector, corporate sector, however you want to look at it, the for-profit sector. You came into an organization experiencing change. And I want to talk to you a little bit about cultural shift. And when do we know that we are in it? It's not human nature to say, woohoo, change, right? How do we do this?
Most of us come in going, oh, no, change is bad, no, right?
Yeah.
Until we're forced into it. And I guess we need to do something about that, don't we? Because now we don't have a choice. And I have to say, I mean, in my experience, I came to ILADS after that the Band-Aid was ripped off, so to speak, where my predecessor, the executive director, who was the only executive director for this organization for 23 years, God love her, finally said, I want to retire. I want to spend time with my family and enjoy life while I still can. So I absolutely still applaud her in making what I think was a bold move, because she truly was the champion of this organization. And again, we're a medical society, so our membership consists of clinicians and researchers in this Lyme disease community. And though they all run their own practices and run their own offices, sure, this is often the very first nonprofit that they've been, if they're in a leadership role, right? And for better or for worse, relied very heavily on that executive director role and the small but mighty team behind the scenes, like a little Wizard of Oz. Mm-hmm. And so when she announced her retirement, the board had this mouth open, gaping, oh, what do we do now? And luckily, I mean, God love them, they pivoted and learned a lot really fast and went through the whole process of identifying, well, where do we want to go? Right. Rather than let's just throw a body in to replace. I give them big kudos in this, because this is scary stuff. We're looking at not just a strategic plan for the next couple of years, where's the direction of the organization, and where do we want this mission to go? Yeah. And we want to bring in a leader who can help us with that mission. And so they embarked on a year-long process before I even came in the door of all of that strategic vision and all that kind of stuff. So I give props to them for. Coming back to what you're saying, I think we're often, we don't want change, but when it happens to us, as we're passively going through life, when it happens to us, some can rise to meet it, and then some maybe not so much. So I love that ILADS rose to meet it in full force.
It's also interesting, I think, in the structure of a nonprofit association, you cannot discount the competitive nature and financially competitive nature of researchers and people that are in it for, they have their own thing. They don't want someone to steal their cheese. So that yet they recognize that there's strength in numbers and the collaborative nature of moving forward. But there is also still a competitive set, right? We see this in the nonprofit sector. I mean, I could drive down the street and talk to you about this shelter, that food bank, this dog shelter, this cultural organization. We're not always the best at playing in the same sandbox.
Well, and interestingly, I totally agree. And ILADS is no different in that. And again, we have a whole bunch of very competitive clinicians who
Sure.
this is their bailiwick, right? But interestingly, so there in this community, there are precious few number of organizations that even help to serve the Lyme community. ILADS is the only medical society doing what we do in this community, and there's a few other organizations, and interestingly, they're all kind of we're a small community, right? So everybody kind of knows each other. We all kind of know the players and things like that. The funding that comes to Lyme disease is so little in terms of federal funding. I mean, it's like single digits that actually go to Lyme disease research. So all the funding that comes into this community is private. It is all private foundations, private donations from individuals, from groups. And there's a wonderful warrior groups across the country who are patients seeking help for themselves, but then also seeking help for other folks. So one of the big things that I aspire to, and I truly believe in, and this has been throughout my whole career, I believe in the importance of collaboration and partnerships. And it can look different for every relationship, but it is so crucial. And it is especially crucial in, just as you're saying, in the players that don't necessarily like to play in the same sandbox. And I came in, and it's not like I had to force us all into the same sandbox. I use my newness, right? This is the fun part of culture change. You can pick up the phone, or I'm old fashioned, I'll still pick up the phone, but you can email or reach out to these other organizations going, hey, I'm new. I don't have the whatever politics and history that may have transpired years ago. And we're all in this same boat together. Again, one voice is much stronger. So hey, let's work together. How do we do that? And then it's opened the door in any conversation that I've had. It's opened the door so wide, and we're now working with other medical associations that focus on similar audiences, other patients. We're working with all kinds of new groups are popping up, going, hey, can we work together? What can we do?
Right.
We have our annual scientific conference that we're doing this year in San Antonio in November. And it's predominantly for clinicians. It's medical CME. There's lots of very cool science and medical things. But in an effort to try to throw open our doors, I'm reaching out to other associations, other community organizations, and offering them like, hey, we'll give you an afternoon track of education focused on pediatrics. Hey, we'll offer you a complimentary exhibit table if you'll come and share your information with us, and we'll do the same. And I mean, those are the kind of things, like using whatever opportunities we have to bring to the table, proverbial table. And that's been huge for us.
It leads me to my next conversation point that I want to explore with you. And that is in terms of a culture shift. When division occurs, I think it's a cool strategy, and it's a brave strategy to throw that barn door open even wider and bring in new and different people. I've got to imagine that for some of your board, that might have seemed a little frightening, or a little like, whoa, what's she doing? And I'm wondering, with that type of potential division or an existing division, how has that played out? How have people seen that?
So there's a couple different points, and I want to come back to the staff that work at ILADS, my team, and I think I am incredibly lucky that I stepped into a highly expertised team that were unfortunately a little siloed in their in their roles, and there was a stay in your lane kind of mentality. And I said, oh, no, we no, I don't have time for that. We don't have enough money for that. Come on. And I mean, when you've got team members who have 20 plus years of experience in associations and working, hundreds of conferences, and like, there's a brain trust, there's a hive mind here that I do not have all the answers, and I will be the first to admit that. But my big answer is opening the door to a team that I had said, I know we were kind of a divided team before. No, come on, ideas, nothing is off the table, and really bringing that team together was huge, I think. And now they're really soaring. On the leadership perspective, there's a couple things. One, I had look of abject terror on the faces of many of the board members.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. But they trusted enough in their process that brought me here, that they gave me the benefit of the doubt. And I think that was huge. And they would still question me, and I encouraged that questioning. And I mean, even some of the structure that we brought to the board meetings, and I'll give one example, very simplistic, but we didn't have this at ILADS. I instituted a pre-reads document that, and we just had a consent agenda, so that we have a 1 hour meeting. We would spend half the time just on, approving the minutes of the last meeting and looking at the financials and talking over things. And so we were not having the conversations that I thought and the board wanted to have. So even instituting some simple structure change, and that changed a huge component of the board meetings that we have. And we meet on a monthly basis. And like that, you could tell, like, oh, that's new. We've never done that. That's completely changed. And it also required everybody to do some homework in between the meetings, which I'm not, I don't know how much they had done prior to that, but again, they gave me the benefit of the doubt. And even though, like, you and I might think, wow, that's such a simple change, that was mind bending to get to that. And so that has opened the door now to, we are now one cohesive voice, and one cohesive board that are like, they're ready to dive into all kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the consent agenda structure because, to your point, you get people that are high functioning, high level folks that are experts in their area, and then they're coming in and wasting time on, some of these approval things where they could be doing the actual stewardship of the organization or the mission. And so good for you. And again, it's change. It's not easy, but then once I would imagine your team moves away from that, board moves away from it, they'll be like, why didn't we always do this? Or didn't we always do this? Right. And, they become imbued with that process, and they see the positivity of it and what other things they can get done. As we finish up, what do you see are some of the biggest threats to a nonprofit as you navigate this landscape? You've got a wide variety of, I would imagine, personalities that you're dealing with, and strong personalities. Talk to us about what you see in terms of threat.
So we mentioned this a little bit ago, but and I know this is not going to be new, and I know a lot of folks are going to just nod their head and kind of shake their eyes. Siloed information. It was a big issue when I first came, and I find with the leadership, the membership at large, staff, committees, that is a constant. You need to always be aware that could happen, and it can be something as simple as the meeting after the meeting, when all of our meetings are by Zoom, right? We come together in person a few times a year, but predominantly all of our meetings are Zoom, right? And invariably at the end of a meeting, one of the board members or a committee member will say, oh, hey, Sarah or so-and-so, can you stick around for a couple more minutes after the board meeting? And I find that they want to rehash something, or they'll say, like, well, I didn't say anything during the meeting, but here's really what my opinion is, right? Yeah. And that can absolutely be so detrimental. There's a time and place. I know there's some confidential issues. Sure. We deal with HIPAA and things like that. So we're always cognizant of those kinds of things. But majority of the time, that's a game ender to me. And so I've come to the point when that happens, if I'm catching the drift of what the individual is really talking, I'll say, well, wait, hold that thought, think through it, think on it. And then either maybe tomorrow or when we come together again, you can write it in, if you're not good at confrontation, you can write it, or but somehow otherwise appropriately bring it to the forefront, because you're doing yourself a disservice by not speaking up and not sharing your opinion. Right. And I've gotten to the point of telling people, like, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, they might yell at you, but they're on Zoom. I can mute them. I have the power to mute them if that's the case. But nothing like that's ever going to happen. So that's a huge one.
I think that's and that's going back to our conversation, framing it in terms of culture. That's a sense of, do I have the voice or the process to communicate, share my truth, object, or whatever. And I think sometimes, a way to get around that is to honor the quorum issue, to say, look, this is a great topic. This is a generative discussion that we need to have, but we need to put this in the right structure and framework. So let's move that to our next meeting, or, something like that, so that it is given voice. But it's somewhat manipulative, I think, for boards to do that side table conversation. And to your point, Sarah, it for the executive director or even the board chair, that needs to be brought up, because that's just so negative.
Absolutely. And to that end, can absolutely divide a unit. Absolutely. And I've seen it happen, not necessarily here at ILADS, but I've seen it happen. Yeah. And that's when you kind of look back like, I could have stopped that 3 times and that would have probably changed the trajectory of this. Yeah. The other component that we are really big at is training that leadership. And I know you and I have mentioned this, Julia, and I know this is going to be in your bailiwick, but really training those board members who've never sat on a board. Right. Never sat in a committee. I actually had to talk about what Robert's Rules of Orders were.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Right. We need to hire you to do a training probably to for our board for that kind of thing. But that, like, simple basic things that I feel like a lot of us take for granted, they've never had, and really are soak up that information. So it's so quick to turn what a threat would be into such a great positive. And then, hey, bonus, other members will want to join the board and committees because they see, hey, I'm going to get training on this, which is going to help me for multiple things. And not only, build my experience and professionalism.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And that I think, that's kind of like one of my core beliefs, is that I think everybody comes into this sector wanting to do well and wanting to do good, right? But they just don't always know how to do it. And then what's the first thing that happens? You start to disengage and you start to pull back, because nobody wants to fail, right? Nobody wants to not do what they said they were going to do. And so it's just easier to disengage. And so I believe we've got to, as a society, as an aging society, we need to be doing this so that we get those people, who's next. We do that in sports. We use that phrase, who's on the bench, right? Who's next? Who's up next? And so we've got to pull that into our culture, because if we don't, I think you're the perfect example of an organization that had steady leadership going in the same direction. Those board members probably thought that it's going to be like this forever.
Easy Street. We're on Easy Street.
Yeah. And then one day it's like, oh, wait, no, we're not. Nope. So, well, this has been a delight to talk to you. I really, really have enjoyed this. And I love, Sarah, that you have an organization that is so vital to so many parts of our communities, and that you have to fight the fight of communication and advocating for your work and your structure. And at the same time, you're just like everyone else. You got to battle the things that go on to keep the engine going, right? It's fascinating. And so Sarah Quillen, Executive Director of International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society, ILADS, check them out. They are really doing some fascinating work. I don't care what it is you do in the nonprofit sector. I think you can learn from a structure like this. How do they take a complicated idea that people have opinions about? First off, I was like, well, I live in the West. We don't have to worry about that. Not so fast. And then you helped educate me, right? I mean, what what lessons that we can learn from this type of an organization. Super powerful. Again, ILADS.org, ILADS, and you can learn about Sarah, her work, and her team and what they're doing. It's been a fascinating conversation. It really, really has. Another thing that's fascinating about the work that we do each and every day on the nonprofit shows, we have longtime supporters who really get behind what we do. And they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and 180 Management Group. Wow, you've really energized me. I loved this conversation, Sarah, about culture, your own experience, and how we can all improve what it is we're trying to do.
Thank you so much for having me on here. It is truly, the honor has absolutely been mine, Julia. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. Hey, everybody, we end this broadcast every day with the same message. And truly, Sarah, it means different things to me every day I say it. But today it really means something because it involves, health wellness. And the message is like this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everyone.